Assalamu alaikum, dear brothers and sisters, and welcome to the 27th clip of this month of Ramadan. Inshallah, in this clip we're going to delve into verses 34 through 36 of Surah An-Najm. In these verses of the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is explaining some fundamental principles of this world and how He calculates the deeds of the human being that have been there in the scriptures from the earliest of times. These are lines and principles that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran that you should be able to find in Suhuf Musa and Suhuf Ibrahim, the scriptures of Musa and the scriptures of Ibrahim. So it shows that this is a fundamental principle that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed to His previous prophets. This principle has been there in their scriptures and in their books, so to speak. And it's something that also shows itself here in the Quran as well. So that shows how critical and fundamental the principle is. So when you look at Surah An-Najm, it says this, أَمْ لَمْ يُنَبَّأْ بِمَا فِي الصُّحُفِ مُوسَى. Do they not know? And have they not been told about those lines that you find in the scriptures of Musa? وَإِبْرَاهِيمَ الَّذِي وَفَّى. And in the scriptures of Ibrahim, الَّذِي وَفَّى, the one who fulfilled his duties. And that has its own tafsir as to what does this part of the verse mean. What are these lines that are so fundamental? Number one, أَنْ لَا تَزِرُ وَازِرَةٌ وِزْرَ أُخْرَى. No one will carry or take on the burden of the deeds of another person. That's number one. Number two, وَأَنْ لَيْسَ لِلْإِنسَانِ إِلَّا مَا سَعَى. And that the human being is not going to be rewarded. He's not going to get any credit for anything except for the effort that he has put in. وَأَنَّ سَعْيَهُ سَوْفَ يُرَى. And that his effort will be seen on the Day of Judgment, meaning that his effort will be presented to him and everyone will be able to see it. Now, of course, the verses continue, but this is the point I want to stop on, because many times we might find individuals who grow up in families who aren't necessarily the most religious families. And because of that, they might be in a more difficult position to adopt the teachings of Islam and to practice the teachings of Islam. And so we would look at them, for example, and we would look at another person who's grown up in a religious family. And in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we might make this judgment, supposedly, or assuming that this other person who's grown up in a non-religious family is behind and that he may not carry as much value. But what the Quran is telling us is that it's not about where you come from. It's not about your background. It's not about what type of a hand you were dealt, so to speak. It's not about what type of a situation you were placed in to begin with. What matters is wherever you start from, how much do you push yourself forward? How much effort do you put into bringing yourself closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? There are those who know nothing about the religion, for example. They just know some basic things, but they act upon it and they're committed to those basic things. This person is acting upon everything that he or she knows. There are those who know 10 times more than that person, but they're not committed to it, right? And so even though the first person, it might look like he's acting less or he's doing less, in reality, his effort might be even more valuable in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now this, of course, is not an excuse for me to sit there and say, well, if I grew up in a non-religious family, therefore Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't expect much from me. No, I still have to do my best. I still have to act upon the religion in its entirety. But this is just a point that shows us, regardless of where you start out from, it's not about that. It's about how much you push yourself closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this shows itself even in the akhlaqi attributes that we have. For someone who is naturally a patient person, when this person is patient, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rewards them to a certain extent. Then you'll come across other people who it's very difficult for them to be patient. Fundamentally, that's how they are. Fundamentally, they are, a person who gets frustrated very easily. This person, if he can work on himself, then his reward might be greater than the first person, right? So there's all of these intricacies, and this is the reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not given us the permission to judge one another, because we don't know the details of the story of each person. We don't know where each person is coming from. We don't know the difficulties that each person is dealing with. We don't know the inherent challenges that every person has in their character. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows, and based on that He can gauge how much effort this person has made to reach the point that they are at now. Therefore, this judgment has to go out of the window. We can only look at a person's conduct and say that this person, inshallah, is trying to do their best. And that's all that we can do as well. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward people based on how much effort that they have made. Not based on their background or what type of family they were born in or other factors that they didn't have power or authority over.